The Paranormal Gateway first up. I'm Scott Wise, and today's guest is paranormal investigator, experiencer, author, and podcast host Michael Kopf. Michael's journey into the unknown began at just 2 years old with encounters involving shadow beings involved into a lifelong exploration of energy, healing, spirituality, astral travel, UFO phenomena, and paranormal investigation. Over the years, he has studied Reiki, Huna, tarot, paganism, mythology, and comparative religion, and numerous healing modalities while earning both his reverend's license and degree in history from University of North Texas. His experiences have taken him across the globe, from Hawaii and Egypt to Italy, Qatar, France, and when he encountered unexplained phenomena that deepened his spiritual awakening. Michael is creator and host of The Energy That Surrounds Us, co-host of Paranormal Versus, contributor to Paranormal Publications, member of multiple investigation teams, and author of the Awakening book series based on his personal journey through paranormal and metaphysical work. Tonight we dive deep into consciousness, energy, and near-death experiences, UFOs, investigations, and mysteries that exist beyond ordinary reality. Without further ado, let's welcome Michael to the show. Oh, hey there. Sure, happy in there. Hi, Michael, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Hey, sure. Looking forward to having you on. Oh, my.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I'm out of breath now, dude.
it's been quite a journey.
Yeah. It happened. So, a few questions for us before we get into some other things here. Um, what was it like your first paranormal experience from childhood? Your first memory?
Well, the interesting thing is I grew up and I always had a feeling like there was something that happened to me that I couldn't quite put my finger on. And as a teenager, I started like remembering falling and I was like, and my memory was off, and like I would say, oh, I was in the attic because they were working on the floor, and there was a vent, and my mom corrected me and said, no, it wasn't the attic, it was the second floor, and so this is up in Illinois, so we had basements in there, and basements are concrete, and so I'd have memories of falling down this vent shaft and then hitting the concrete, but then getting up and walking off and thinking, this is a weird memory. And every time I would have this memory, I would go like, this and like rub my eyebrow. And I finally figured out my eyebrow got nicked by a wire. And so there's a spot on my eyebrow that doesn't have hair.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like I had a visual cue to trigger the memory, and the memory started coming in, and I would talk to a medium friend of mine in Greece, and Catherine Sorlos, and she looked at me one day on a show and she goes, would you like to know what happened when you were 2? And I said, yeah, I've went and fell into a shaft. And she goes, no, that's not exactly what happened. And I go, really? And she goes, yeah. She goes, you were accidentally pulled in. And I was like,
Uh,
we accidentally pulled in. And she said, yeah, a being grabbed my arms and I fell in. And I was like, well, that's not really cool. And then after she told me this and said there was a being that, pulled you in, I was like, okay, that makes sense, because I remember talking to the being about, doing this and stuff, to unfold later in life to help people. And she goes, yeah, that wasn't that person. A different being came and took you from that person, and that's the one you had the conversation with, and they put you on the ground and you were able to walk away, and your memory was blocked until now. And I said, oh, okay, that's really cool. And then my mom fills in a couple of years later. She goes, you keep telling this story, but in order for CPS not to be involved, you're missing some details. And I go, oh, what's the details? She goes, I had covered the hole over the vent with plywood, and we don't know how the plywood was moved when you fell in, but you shouldn't have been able to fall in. And I was like, well, that's really interesting. That adds another, paranormal aspect to it. And then she goes, and it was winter time. So you can picture, early 80s. The kids all look like little stars walking around in the winter with the winter clothes on. And she said, it's quite possible the fact that you were so padded for winter is why you didn't get hurt. And I was like, well, yeah, I guess that could be too. But she was like, that's when she told me you were on the second floor and you did fall to the basement. You were right about that. And all that did happen was your eye got clipped by a wire. But she was like, yeah, you had no broken bones, no bruises, no nothing. It's like nothing happened. And I was like, that's really cool and good to know. And I was sharing this on another episode or on an interview, and somebody goes to me and goes, well, I find it interesting. You're missing out on the most important part. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I shared I was, talked to a being. I was pulled out of time. I fell. Well, what's the part I'm missing? She goes, you understood the being. How at two did you understand that being? And I was like, I never thought about it. But yeah, you're right. That is kind of cool. And another level to it.
So how did your family react when you told them about your encounters? Or dare tell them?
Well, when I was sharing it a lot more, because people were fascinated by it, because it had beans, it had missing time or pulled out of time, all these really cool aspects to it. And now it's like everyone, when I go and they're like, oh, so been in the paranormal long? I was like, well, I did have an experience of two. And everyone's like, yeah, we know. And it's like, okay, show's over. We're going to move on to a different topic. But I think for me, I think it was the way it unfolded was the best for me, because it came to me when my mind was open enough to go, okay, this is real. Not open up and I'm like, this can't be real. This is, and doubt myself and go, nope, and walk away from it. So I think that was divinely timed and set in stone of certain experiences to trigger it at the right time. And so, yeah, it's interesting how life unfolds if you step back and go with the flow of it.
Right. Well, I've been for a long while now. In my 5 or 6 years, like I just started having lucid dreaming a lot. And I think that's why I'm exhausted every night when I get up because I don't know, people don't know how it feels unless you do it because while you're dreaming, you're still active in your dreams when you are. I can't explain to you either. I'll never understand it or not. But that's how I feel every day when I get up. So,
I used to have that where I would wake up and feel like I got maybe 20 minutes of sleep and be like
yeah.
dead to the world and had to take hot showers, really hot showers to wake up and be like, okay, we're good for the day. And what I figured out was for me, I do travel a lot in the astral realm and do a lot of out of body work at night. And so I needed a way to refresh myself before coming back. And I slowly started to figure out the astral realm is energy. So as we're taught in science, energy is created. It can be manipulated. It can be, any pretty much any state, but it can never be destroyed. And so I thought and started thinking to myself, well, if I'm in a state of energy, why am I being drained? And is there a way to prevent this? And I started to realize how the astral realm works. And I created a little pocket space that I would go to where I would be like, hey, I can see everything going on around me, but nobody seems to be able to see me here. This is kind of cool. And this is kind of like a sanctuary. So let's, see about utilizing this. And I ended up creating this kind of easy way to describe it would be a world where I can go that's specific to me and it re energizes me. And so I will wake up like I got 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep, as active or inactive as I am. And I started waking up a lot better and going, man, why didn't I think of this sooner? But
Yeah. It's
so
like,
that's something you might try is, figure out is there a way to,
uh,
you know,
uh,
rejuvenate before you come back.
yeah. Um, it's weird because I'm in there and I'm actually participating while I'm in there doing stuff. It's weird, some of the stuff, but I don't know. I can't explain it really, but it's how
Yeah.
active I am because I know that I had like a few dreams for a while that I'm up in our family's cabin, and it's like almost every night I was like that for many weeks, but it's just like almost every night, for me. But and I do see my friend passed away a lot, um, in my dreams.
Yeah. In the astral realm, time runs different than it does here. And that's why I get a lot of times I'll be confused by time because my mind is still semi in the astral where I'm like, when I'm meant to be there, I'll just be there and it doesn't matter that certain time. And then it's like, wait, no, I'm on Earth realm. I need to be reminded of specific times of things. And I have like multiple calendars now being stored on my phone to alert me to stuff because I'm forgetting stuff because I'm I'm like running two different times and it gets confusing because here we go the sun rises and the sun sets, that's daytime. and when the sun sets to when it rises is nighttime. And I'm like, okay, but when you're on the astral realm, there is no sun up or sun down, and so time to me doesn't really exist out there, and so I can tap into loved ones that are no longer here and see them and communicate with them as if they were here, because in the astral realm I view time as being the past, present, and future in one moment, to where here on the earth realm we have the past is in the past, we're in the present, and the future we don't know what it looks like, so we don't really go there. But and so it's harder to see loved ones who are on the other side or transitioned to another world, because our mind frame isn't geared towards that. We're like, nope.
Yeah. That's what I think might be happening because um, me and my wife used to go visit family friends, and then like I found out the one guy died, and I had to dream about him, and it was like real lucid. And when his wife died, the same thing happened. So I don't know. I see it now as well too in my dreams, but I don't know. It's just weird.
So I'll explain this to you in metaphysics terms, because it might help you with your lucid dreaming. So death in the metaphysics, from my experience, from what I've learned growing up and following and doing my own studies, death is the end of a physicality. It's not the end of a person. It's just the end of their physically being in front to where you can physically touch
Mm-hmm.
and feel their touch, feel them physically. So when a loved one, like when my mom recently passed and when my dad
Oh,
passed,
sorry.
thank you. It's like I got emotional because I realized I'm not going to be able to have those physical interactions anymore, like getting a physical hug or physically see their face light up telling them something. But the difference is I can feel their energy. I can still hear their voice.
Mm-hmm.
I can still feel a hug from them.
Mm-hmm.
It's an energy hug instead. So they're not gone. They're just not physically here. And so that's what I mean when I say I'm mourning the loss of the physicality, not the loss of the person. And so when I go into the astral realm and I'm going around, it's not uncommon for me to go, "Oh, hey, Dad, how's it going? What are you up to?" And it's like they're not gone, but at the same time, then when I come back, I realize, yeah, I miss them being here, but I'm grateful that I can still see and interact with them in the astral and in the dream state. And so that could be what's happening with you. It's why you feel so lucid, is because you're actually are interacting with them
Mm-hmm.
and you're remembering it, and which is a great gift, because a lot of people don't remember what they're dreaming or what they're doing on the other side out of body when they sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, that happened. I don't know, stuff maybe 7 8 years ago. And I was diagnosed with ataxia cerebral. I got a little black spot on my cerebrum. So I have problems with balance and sometimes talking and stuff. But So I don't know if it had anything to do with it. I don't. I can't say if it did or if it opened something up. So what are your thoughts on that? That maybe it just started. So I started this about 10 years ago or 15 years ago, probably. And then I don't know if it's something I tapped into because that didn't used to have lucid dreams up like it's just about 7 years ago, probably.
Well, it could be attributed to that, and it could also be, you might have been watching a program or watching something, and your mind goes, "Hey, that's really cool," and that is something I think we can do, and
Hmm.
it activated, and
Well, that
you
that makes sense because back where I lived about 20 years ago, I was very into that kind of stuff. Lucid dreaming. I always used to read about hypnotizing myself to see if I could find my past life. I tried doing that a long time ago, but it never worked for me. But
well, I will tell you, I have gone through sessions with mediums when I was a kid, and everything was recorded on tape, and the tapes never recorded for me. They would record for my parents, same machines, same tapes, but mine would never record. And they would say, well, your guides just want you to know it, and it's just for you, and there's not meant to be a record of it. That's why it didn't record. Or it could be, we in metaphysical terms, they're called downloads, and something could have happened to where you made, they're starting to talk about like soul contracts now, where you predetermine things that were going to happen in this life, and when you were born you have no idea what they are, and they run on their own program. And so you could have had a contract of, hey, when I reach this age, I you know I'm going to tap into lucid dreaming. And the download came because it was that time. And all of a sudden, you are now able to lucid dream. But the fact that you can't access past lives, I would say, doesn't mean you don't have them. I would say it just means your mind's not ready yet to tap into that information. And it could also be you are accessing them, but you don't realize it, because a great example is if you were, near water and you're like, oh, I never could swim. I hate the water. I'm definitely afraid of water. And then one day you get in the water and you start swimming, and everyone's like, what's going on? Well, you may have had a past life of someone who enjoyed being in the water.
mm-hmm.
And you access that memory, and your mind goes, oh, hey, we like being in water. We're no longer afraid of it. And so you get in the water. And the vice versa is if you were say, a victim on the Titanic and you drowned in the ocean, you're not going to want to get near water.
One way home.
Oh, there's a squirrel that ran around outside.
Oh lordy, I'll do it.
But
I have geese out here.
yeah, but I mean, it's like little nuances like that to where like you can't explain why this is happening, or why you're afraid of this, or why you avoid this. Those are most likely remnants of a past life that bled through
Mm-hmm.
and are impacting you today. And when you think about it that way, it makes more sense in that, for
I I have to tell you, um, it did remind me of a dream I did have that I was a soldier, and there was a German soldier, and I was went and hung out with like a cabin full of people, and like all women except for a few men, and there was a hidden cell or whatever that they had some pulled back, and so we were in with the women. We were down in the bottom and reached the camera or whatever, and then got out. And then the horrible thing is that the whole cabin was torched by it. I'm like, what the fuck was that? So I don't know. That's probably the weirdest dream I had for a long time. But
Well, and that could very well be a past life memory coming through, and that really did happen. It's the things about past lives, though, is you see in like books and you read about people who they're like, oh, we've proven, this is real because we have the records of this, this, and this. And I think that's great that they're, are doing that. But at the same time, it doesn't always work that way. Like, I could sit there and say, I have a past life memory of being this king's son. Well, according to history, the king never got married. So how does he have a son?
right,
There's no son, listed in history, but yet I have memory. And so it's like, who's right? History or me? And that's the problem with past lives because not everything is recorded in history, but not everything we remember is pure memory either. Because I could have watched a movie about royals and been like, oh man, that'd been really cool to be a king's son, and
yeah,
what would that be like? And then I
mm,
dreamed being the king's son, and it's like,
right,
is that memory or is that from TV? And it's like, yeah. So that's where I think it's great that people are aware of past lives and have an interest, but I think more often than not, they can't be validated or proven. And so a lot of people discount and just say
yeah,
no when they very well could be. But yeah, we have to trust ourselves. And if it feels really deeply connected to you, and it's like, this is not a dream, this is not a lucid dream, it's like, because I couldn't change anything, I couldn't manipulate it, then I would say you're remembering a past life. But if you can go in and you're like, oh, this guy was about to shoot this person and I changed the rifle to a water hose and he hosed the guy instead, yeah, that's probably, I would define that as you're having a lucid dream.
yeah,
So I hope that helps.
yeah, yeah. It does, and uh, also was trying. I think there's more information. I read a lot of stuff on that, but I'm trying to find something that. I mean, you probably have something I can read about it. But, so what first drew you towards studying energy healing and spiritual practices?
So what got me started in that was our family. I had two sisters growing up and a lot of family around me, and we all were given the choice of what do you want to believe in. And so I chose metaphysics over mainstream religion. My sisters went to religion. My parents decided to go metaphysics. And so we became outcasted from the family. The family didn't want anything to do with us. And so I thought, well, maybe the fact that I chose metaphysics meant there was something broken in me that I needed to fix. And so I was going to use metaphysics to fix me. and in fixing me, fixing the family. And so that's how it started. And then I would learn Huna because I was like, well, this actually has protection in it. This has, I can raise my energy and I can manipulate my body in certain ways using energy and air and elements around me. And so this is actually useful. So I studied it for a while. And then I would study like tarot, thinking, I always see on, the old shows or a lot of paranormal shows, they're getting messages through the cards. And so I was like, maybe I can, get answers through the cards as to where I'm supposed to go. And so everything started out as me trying to fix broken me to mend everything. And then I'd like to say, this awareness came really quickly, but sadly, it was like 20 years later, 30 years later. I woke up one day and I was like, you know what? I was never broken. I had made a choice. They made a choice. My choice doesn't reflect upon them. And so I have nothing to fix because I'm not broken in this way. And so they chose to leave the family, not me. So I don't need to fix it. They need to fix it.
Right.
And this huge pressure and weight got lifted off of me. And it's like my whole mindset got clear. Like I had this clear and clarity, so to speak. And I was like, whoa, why couldn't I do this sooner? Because life feels so much better now. But then I look at it and go, well, all these things though that I learned are helping me now with what I'm doing now. So it's almost like I needed that to happen to trigger the work to lead me to where I am. And so, yeah, and by that awareness, I learned, if I was to, we always say if I could go back in time and change this one event, life would be so much better or different. I in turn, with all of the studying and everything that I did on myself and introspection, realized if I went back and changed a moment in my timeline in the past, I would not be who I am today, but two, everybody around me would be altered as well. So I may turn out for the best, but everybody around me may turn out for the worst because that event didn't help them boost to where they needed to go. And so I had to realize, wait a minute, our moments and times where life was hard for us, it was hard for other people too. So I can't rob them of that and try and make my life easier and risk losing what I am now. Because I like who I am now. And I think I'm a really cool person now. And so I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
going back and changing, I'm like, man, I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to lose that cool aspect that I am now. It's just, it took a while to chisel it out.
Yeah. So, what is timeline therapy and how does it impact your understanding of consciousness?
Wow. So timeline therapy, I'll explain it the way that I do it. And that is, so I'll see a pattern in life where, let's say, hypothetically, I start dating someone and then in 2 weeks, we break up over something. And that's, so I have a pattern of 2 weeks relationships. That's it. Well, timeline therapy, what I do is I go, okay, why and where is the root cause of my having the only 2 weeks worth of ability in relationships? And so then your mind goes back to the past, and this is where past lives come in, is because it could be past life related, and it doesn't matter how far back or how close. It's You're just looking for the root cause, and that root cause may not be what you think it is. So it may be, I was a soldier in a Roman army and I got sent to war, and I died 2 weeks after we, got married or got together. Well, and then you look forward and, oh, well, here I was a guy at work and something happened to me, and I just happened to be at the 2 week mark of seeing someone, and I was killed or they were killed. And so it's like, okay, so you get to the root cause, whatever it looks like, and you go, now what led up to this event? And you start to look at everything, in the visual stream playing before you, and then you look at the aftermath and you go, okay, so what's do you need to change? And I was like, well, the way I'm looking at this is wrong because this isn't what I thought it was. It is something else that, she, yes, I died in battle, but she had already found somebody else. So
Mm.
my death did not cause her hardship. She left me first. So, so now am I doing it to protect myself from being, you know, left and abandoned by someone? And I go, well, but look at how happy she is, and look at how life was with us. We just were like, there was no real connection. We were just going through motion, you could say. So she did better by leaving me and going to this relationship
Mm.
and had a much happier life. I had a happier life because I could see, there were other people going around, but I was still, focused on I'm with this person, so I was being faithful. Well, that's a good thing, being faithful. So that explains why I don't have it in me to cheat on someone or date multiple people at the same time. That's a good thing. So keep that. Well, keep the fact that it was better for her and me that we split. Keep that positive. And then you anchor, or, and it may be like a tap on the shoulder, and you anchor that in. So whenever you go like this, it's like, oh, yeah, I remember the happiness in this situation. Well, then as you're coming forward, you watch how the energy ripples through, and that pattern is erased from your timeline, and it's a different pattern now. And so a way to look at it is I may go and start a relationship, and it's 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks. Same outcome, she leaves me to do something else, but hey, I went 3 weeks instead of two, so the pattern's changed. But what's the new pattern? Why now am I not still able to go the distance, like have a long term? Why is it still short? And so it builds on each other, and it's a moving target. And in life, we've heard of the term, it's like peeling an onion, there's always multiple layers. Well, that's an actual metaphysical term, is we actually view life as an onion where you have multiple layers. You never get to a core. And so it just allows you to see patterns in life and to learn from them and change them without changing who you are. It just changed how you react to situations, and you eventually get where you're wanting to go, but you got to do the work. And the work, people don't like the term work, or they don't like the term shadow work, because it's like that sounds dark and ominous. And I'm like, it's really not. It's just you looking at aspects of yourself and going, do I like this? Yes. Keep it going. Do I not like this? No. Well, how do I change it? And if it's nothing I can change, how do I change my reaction to it? That I can change. So if somebody, pushes your buttons and you're like, I'm tired of this, you could do the timeline therapy to where you don't react and you don't give him the reaction that he's looking for, and he'll stop because you're no longer feeding his ego or giving him the satisfaction of being reactionary. And you just, he'll come up and push the button and you're like, you know that used to really annoy me, but you know what, I'm okay with it now. I've gotten used to it. So have at it and don't take it on. And they will be like stunned and be like, what do you mean? What? Well, where's the fun in that? And what? And and at times they may even be like, hey, I didn't even realize I was being annoying. I thought I was being funny. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. And you have a much different outcome. That's the work being successful. And it could be, there's a term where things come out sideways, and you're like, so I've done a lot of relationship work. Well, but now work wise, I can't, it's the same thing. I can only work so much time and then I get fired, or I leave the job because it just no longer fits. Why is it always a specific time? Well, that could be due to the relationship issues, but it's not showing itself as the relationship. That's why we say it comes out sideways, is they're all entangled together. So you think you're done with something and it'll show up somewhere else and you're like, oh.
Yeah. So, when did you pursue a reverence license?
I got my reverend's license because I was getting ready to open a Reiki practice, and I was thinking I'm going to do hands-on energy work or energy work on someone. And we were advised, you're opening yourself up to, if someone doesn't like something you've done, you can be sued. And
Oh,
we're
okay.
like, oh, we never thought about that. And they
I,
go,
I'm with
yeah.
you with that.
And so they were like, if you're going to be doing energy work, you need to be protecting yourself and your livelihood. And so they all looked at us, and we were all talking about it in a group, and they said, if you get a reverend's license, you as a person who can marry someone, or you can start a church, or you can do counseling, spiritual counseling, they can't touch you. So you can put your energy work under that umbrella and you are protected by church law. It's no longer man law. And I was like, well, that's good to know. And so I went, and I always make a point of when I say, when I got my license, I did a 2.5 year study. I didn't go on the internet and get one of those 2 minute Reverend licenses off the internet so I could go do this or that. No, I actually did a course study, and I had to write two sermons. I never gave the sermons, but I had to write them, and they both were well received. And so I got my license, and I just, I have Reverend in my title, and I used to have a page on Facebook about, being a Reverend, but then I realized I'm not really doing anything with it. I'm not really using it. So I was like, yeah, I can let it go, and I'll just, if somebody ever wanted to talk to me about something, I jokingly will say to them, well, I'm like a vault. Anything you tell me, I can't, it's privileged information. I'll never tell anybody. And they're like, and they start laughing. They're like, oh, why? Is it like, is it like a lawyer thing or something? I was like, no, it's a reverend thing. And they're like,
What?
huh? And I go, yeah, I have a reverend's license, and sometimes it'll calm people down, and they'll be like, oh, well, I want to know about this. I want to know about that. So it does help, calm some people down that they are talking to them. And I started doing hospice volunteering, and
Oh.
I would talk to patients, and I would be like, oh, are you ready to return to source and return to home? And they'd all, and they'd all the people I would see would be like, no, I can't. And I was like, why not? Well, because I've done this, I've done that. And I said, well, who told you that keeps you from going there? Well, the church, says this. And I'm like, well, have you, sought to do anything about it? Well, there's nothing I can do. I was like, well, let me ask you this. If I was to say to you, you're absolved of all of that and you are welcome to return home, what would you do? And they kind of looked at me and they would go, well, that doesn't mean anything because you have no authority. And I go, what if I told you I have a reverend's license? And all of a sudden their faces lit up and they're like, oh, so you can do that? And I was like, yeah. And so I was like, all these mistakes that you think you've made are not going to keep you from entering home. You are welcomed there. Go find, meet your family, welcome them. Don't suffer here any more than you have to. And I started getting the nickname Angel of Death at the hospice place because I would start, and within a week or two, they would pass away. I could not keep a patient long term. And they would be like, oh, we had this lady who's been, years on hospice. Within 2 weeks, maybe 3, I would be like, and visiting, once a week or twice a week is all it would take, and they would be good to go, and they would go, and they would be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just talking to them, and I'm just telling them it's okay. They're good to go, that there's nothing to fear about going now. And I take the fear out of it. And, they were so appreciative. And so that's an area where I felt like my reverend's license came in handy because I can honestly say, yes, I do have that license. So what I'm telling you will hold up in your religious viewpoint. But I just had this niche though in the back of my head of I wish religion would stop teaching the fear of death and the fear of this, because it is a detriment to people at the end, because they suffer so, because they feel like they don't measure up, or
Right.
they can't do it because they made one mistake in their life that's been held over their heads. And I'm like, this is nonsense. He doesn't care about that. He's not keeping the scorecard like they tell you in religion. And so, yeah, religion and I don't get along very well. And I think that's also because I grew up metaphysical. So it's like
Right.
I never had the dogma. And real funny story I'll tell you about when I was like 6 to 7 years old. My dad was raised Catholic and my mom was raised Lutheran. So we were in a Catholic church. And we would sit there, and as soon as the priest or preacher, I forget which role it is in the Catholic Church, but he would get up to deliver the dogma sermon, I would fall deep asleep. You could not wake me up. But the second he was done, I would wake up and I would be like, continue talking, where when I, whatever I was talking about before I fell asleep, I would just continue. To me, I was like, I didn't realize I had gone to sleep and missed out on all the dogma. And I was in a mediumship circle one night, and I was like, I started laughing because I was thinking about this, and whoever was channeling at the time looked over at me and they go, "Yes, little one, you have an interesting question in your mind. You know, what share it with us." And I was like, "No, it's okay." And they're like, "No, share it." I go, "So I was wondering, are you all the ones that put me to sleep in the church when the dogma was turned on?" And they said, "Yes, we didn't want you to be raised in dogma and to have the dogma." And so I was like, "Okay, that makes sense now. Cool. All right, mystery solved. Now I got my answer as to why I could never stay awake during the priest sermon." And we finally ended up just quitting church because we're like, there's no point in going if it's just the social aspect. We don't need to go. But yeah, it was funny because it didn't matter who I sat next to, my mom or my dad or one of my sisters. I would be singing with them when they sang. I would be listening to the announcements. But when it came to the sermon, gone.
Uh, do you believe that everyone can learn this sense manipulate energy?
Oh, I think so. I think everybody has it within them, and
Yeah.
it's just a matter of trusting yourself to use it and use it wisely. And by using it wisely, I mean you have to understand energy has frequency, frequency has power behind it. And so thoughts run on energy. And so if I sit there and we think about something, it could very well happen. And a coincidental funny story around that is on a family trip, my parents, my two sisters, and I left this restaurant in East St. Louis one day, and we're like, man, that food was horrible. I mean, and we're not foodie people, we're like, we'll eat a decent food on the road. We're happy. But the food just didn't agree with us. And we were like, man, this place was so awful. The service was so bad. And we all kind of laughed and said God would do a service to mankind if this, restaurant wasn't here anymore. Well, we drove down the road and we pulled into the hotel, and my parents would turn on the TV and to hear the news. The restaurant that we ate in got hit by a tornado after we left.
Oh
And
God.
so we started laughing and going, ooh, maybe we should tell people, before we eat there, make sure you give us your best food because your restaurant may disappear.
Oh God.
But we all joked about it and said, wow, we leveled the restaurant. Well, no, we didn't. It was just a coincidence, but there is that, a little bit of me, though, that wonders, hey, power of five people's thoughts all, at one certain point, was that enough energy to trigger an event? Maybe, maybe not, but it never happened again. But it was just a funny moment that everything was in perfect alignment to go, yeah, be careful your thoughts.
Yeah. Um, we're getting close. For people just beginning on their own, spiritual parallel awakening, what advice do you give them?
I don't know if I would actually even give them a book for a spiritual awakening experience. I would just sit there and say to them, have you ever thought, or ever been in a space where you felt somebody nearby you that's not around anymore, like your mom or your dad or your grandparent, and you felt it so strong that you're like, they're there, but they're not there. And if they go, yes, I'd say that's a spiritual awakening experience. It's
Hmm.
also a paranormal experience. And so, a lot of paranormal experiences kind of go along with the metaphysics and our spiritual experiences. So I would say, just note, what are you feeling when that happens? What are you going through when that happens? What's the outcome? There's your awakening experience. Build on it, and find people who have gone through similar experiences. Because to me, talking and hearing other people's experiences trigger more than reading it in a book, because you could be reading a book and go, well, this was fiction, and write it off. But when you hear someone's story being spoken out, your mind will latch on and go, that's starting to sound like something we went through. Wait a minute. There's something to this. Maybe, and then you will start to find the books, and you'll start to find like shows or different YouTubes maybe that coexist along with what you're thinking and broaden your experience. But you also, it's really important when you're awakening, and even if you've been awakened for a long time, you have to use discernment with resonance. If information resonates with you, and what I mean by that is your body's like reacting to the information, like you're getting chills, or you're getting little shivers, or tingly feeling, or you're like, wow, this, really makes sense. Go with it, research it some more, follow that. And if you listen to somebody and you're like, no, none of this, agrees with me, I don't agree with any of this, don't attack the person and say they're a fraud, because just because it doesn't resonate with you doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it's not the right information for you. So just walk away and find something else.
Right. So you want to know, um, uh, uh, talk about your website so people can go to it? I have up here in the corner. If people want to go there then for after the show.
Yeah, and it does work. We checked it out before we started. The
Yeah,
QR
yeah.
code will direct you to my website, and my website was created because I lost my Facebook account, and I do podcasting and write books or articles. And so I created this website to keep everyone informed where I'm at, what I'm doing. And the funny story around the title, the webpage domain, was I thought I was putting in the keywords to search
Hmm.
for my website. And it turns out I was making my website title. So that's why it's Michael Kopf, paranormal investigator and podcaster.com. Is I thought I was doing keywords and I was actually writing the domain. And so I didn't want to have to pay to do it over. So I was just left it alone. And
Yeah, the QR code's easier. Yeah, I'll have it also, I think I'll have to post and stuff. And sure, it'll be on Spotify, it'll be on Amazon, it'll be on iHeart, and well, with YouTube, of course, and Facebook. So,
very cool. And again, I am so grateful for this,
I'll,
experience and
I'll definitely have,
opportunity.
I'll definitely have back or, um, yeah, I'll call your show sometime.
I'd be happy to come back on anytime.
Yeah,
Just
heck yeah.
let me know when you have availability.
Yeah, sure thing. It's about blast having you on, damn it. Great having you.
Yeah, and I'm starting to write more, and I'm not investigating as much anymore, but I do
Mhm.
still go out and investigate. So I try to keep up with what's going on, and I'm trying to talk a team into right now of the fact of we can go to like a historic place and just walk around for a couple hours and be like, hey, we just investigated. What did we feel? What did we, come across? We don't have to use equipment, and it can be in the daytime or nighttime. And so trying to broaden horizons and do investigations in different ways because some places don't allow it. And so it's like, well, I respect that. But at the same time, if you have, say, a medium with you, they don't have an on off switch. So they're going to walk through and they're going to pick up on stuff. So you're going to get an investigation through having one of them with you, even though you're not allowed to use equipment because they're a walking equipment. So that's just something I'm like starting to toy with is going, yeah, do we rely too much on equipment or do we trust our senses and go, hey, look, we just did this and look what we got? And some of us are in agreement over some stuff and some of us aren't. And hey, that's what happens on an investigation with equipment. So still works.
That's cool. What's that? Back to tonight. I gotta get one. My dog has to go out.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah,
got two over here, as you heard
yeah,
earlier.
yeah, dude. So, there's that Blast Through the Night, like I said, but it's Spotify, Facebook, Amazon, and iHeart. So, you can check that out. And I'll get with you after the show, after I take care of things, and I'll send you links and stuff, so everything. So,
Okay, thank you. Because yes, I will put it on my website, and if you give me the links to your locations, I'll put them on my website so
oh,
people go to check your stuff out as well.
definitely. I'll do that. Oh, thanks again, Helen. and I'll guess the other. Like
Yeah.
so we'll keep in touch.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. And have a wonderful night and have some fun with your little ones.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
All
Take
right.
care.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.